Piers Morgan seems to be shocked. The moment when Piers Morgan finds out about Israel's hypocrisy. Yes, we're talking about, you know all those bombs and artillery shells and drone strikes and sniper pop shots that Israel, the IDF, is doing towards the civilians of Gaza. Well, as it turns out, Piers Morgan clashes with former deputy mayor of Jerusalem about that. You know how many terrorists you've killed? You know exactly how many terrorists you've killed, but no idea how many civilians you've killed? That's convenient. Piers Morgan, do you condemn Hamas? And by the way, folks, do you think that Piers Morgan is reading the room and is like, uh-oh, I really can't be going to bat for the IDF or Israel because they really are committing all those war crimes. Hey, listen, if you don't believe me, here's a snippet from Piers Morgan's own show. I apologize in advance. This lady, I think, is just completely soulless.
What was the problem with the Ehud Olmert government? What was the problem with the Rabin government?
Well, they didn't kill nearly 40,000 Palestinians in 8 months.
First of all, please, Piers, we know that the numbers have gone up.
Wasn't he singing a different tune just a few months ago? I don't mean to pause right now, but I mean, seriously, I kind of remember him being indifferent to that death toll that kept on rising up and up and up and up. Piers, your buddy, your pal, Rabbi Shmuley, he might not view this current statement as cash money.
Government.
Well, they didn't kill nearly 40,000 Palestinians in 8 months.
First of all, please, Piers, we know that the numbers have gone up and down like yo-yos. Even the UN said last week that it wasn't already 35,
how many do you think have been killed?
That it was 20. All I can say to you is,
how many do you think have been killed?
We have, I would say, potentially around 20,000, because that's what the UN
you have
said,
no idea.
22,000.
You have no idea.
Let's not start with this line of questioning.
Actually, I'm going to start with this line of questioning.
I don't think Churchill knew in the middle of the Second World War how many Germans he'd killed. And so this is a farcical question. What I can tell you is
you just gave me a number, but you've no idea why you've got that number.
That's what the UN says. The UN says, according to the so-called Gaza Health Ministry, let's take their number. Let's take the number, the mistaken, corrected number of the Gaza so-called health ministry, all terrorists underground, hiding like cowards. But let's say now they say...
The way they describe these tunnels, it's sort of like there's like a secret Saturday morning cartoon base there. And by the way, 80 to 90% of Gaza is a moonscape. I just wanted to say this right here, right now. Are we certain those hostages are still alive? Because, controversial statement here. They might be deceased. Wasn't that like a major concern for Netanyahu? Oh, wait, no, it wasn't. It's right now leveling all of Gaza down. You think he's going to listen to the ICC, ICJ, the U.S. government, the European Union? No. He doesn't give a damn about the UN. This lady's in her own reality. And look, while I am impressed just a little bit, just a tiny bit, that Piers Morgan is like, hey, there's a lot of dead civilians. Piers, your hands ain't clean from this either, buddy, because you were going to bat pretty hard. I know that that your good friend Bassem Youssef had to give you an education not once but twice. You should invite him back on your show again for the third time, where this time I'm willing to bet that the tune would be a lot more different.
Saying 22,000. We know we've killed 14,000 terrorists.
No, you don't.
Now you tell me.
Don't.
Yes, we do.
No, you
yes,
don't.
we do. So you tell me.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not having that. I pressed the Israeli.
We know how many brigades. We know how many brigades we've gotten rid of. We know how many brigades.
I'm going to respond to you. I did put this.
We know how many brigades.
I put this to an Israeli government spokesman. I asked him, how many Hamas have you killed? And he gave me this figure. And I said, how many civilians have you killed? And he had no idea. I said, well, then how can you be so precise about how many terrorists you've killed? You can't. If you've got no idea how many civilians you've killed, why should I believe a word about the numbers of Hamas?
Because we know how many brigades they have, because we have that intelligence. We know how many.
Gee, you seem to have a lot of intelligence, but you can't find those hostages. Gee, you have a whole lot of intelligence, but your drone operators couldn't tell the difference between, unmarked vehicles and marked vehicles. Like what happened to the World Central Kitchen workers who had their logo not all over their car, the roof, the hood, the doors. And hell, they were in open communication as they were delivering food. the starving refugees from point A to point B. And as they were leaving point B, going back to point A on the designated route that you guys knew, 1, 2, 3, the drone strikes blew up the entire convoy, killing all the aid workers. Oh, wait. Hey, wait a minute. You guys have the intelligence to tell the difference between, civilians and terrorists? And wait, don't you guys have the intelligence to know that there's also journalists there? How many journalists died in Gaza so far? Over on 140 plus. Maybe the number's a lot higher now. Your intelligence doesn't seem to be that bright.
Any brigades.
So just to be clear,
just
to be clear, you know exactly how many terrorists he's killed, but you have no idea how many civilians.
We estimate, absolutely. We estimate that there's about 14,000 terrorists, which we've gotten rid of. We know how many are left. There's 4 brigades, and that's why we're in Rafah.
And how many civilians have you killed?
The UN, again, Piers, in the middle of the Second World War, I don't think you could have pushed
You're doing it as well.
Ask him,
sorry, Fleur.
What am I doing?
You're doing the same thing the government spokesman did. You know exactly how many terrorists you've killed, but you've no idea how many civilians.
We don't know exactly.
How convenient.
We don't know exactly.
We don't know exactly how many civilians we killed. We are only following orders. We are only following orders. The numbers presented by other sources are incorrect. Piers, fall in line. She doesn't know. Now they know how many terrorists they killed. How many civilians? Well, gee. All of Gaza has been turned into a moonscape. All those people dead. Right? What do you think the death toll is? We don't know. Hey, men, women, and children are starving. How many are dying of malnutrition? We don't know. But we do know how many terrorists we killed. Hey, do you guys know how many journalists you killed? We don't look at that number. This woman's in her own reality. Let's rewind that just a little bit.
That there's about 14,000 terrorists, which we've gotten rid of. We know how many are left. There's 4 brigades, and that's why we're in Rafah.
And how many civilians have you killed?
The UN, again, Piers, in the middle of the Second World War, I don't think you could have pushed Churchill.
You're doing it as well.
Ask him.
Sorry, Fleur.
What am I doing?
You're doing the same thing the government spokesman did. You know exactly how many terrorists you've killed, but you've no idea how many civilians.
We don't know exactly.
How convenient.
We don't know exactly.
How convenient. That Israel knows exactly how many terrorists you've killed, but you've no idea how many innocent women and children.
Do you believe the UN numbers?
Huh?
Do you believe the UN numbers?
I just find it staggering that you'll all come on and say to me, we know we've killed 14,126 Hamas, but we've no idea how many civilians.
Because we know what the army that we...
So wait a minute. Hold on. So when you guys blow up those locations, when you bomb, you do airstrikes, when you do pop shots at civilians, and when you check the dead body, do they have like a name badge or tag says, "Hi, I'm Billy, and I'm with Hamas." Hamas. You sure? You sure about all these strikes? All these universities that have been demolished, schools, community centers, residential homes, hospitals. Are you guys 100% certain? Because it seems to be you're just shooting into the ether. Just shooting it all. And all those people die. Hey, listen, lady, I'm just going to give you a famous quote from a show, from a line. People die when they are killed,
We're dealing with is we know what the terrorists.
No, I'm sorry, it's nonsense to say you can count one and not the other.
Absolutely not. It's nonsense to even ask the question. I don't know who in the middle of a war starts counting here.
You're counting
the people that they've killed.
You're counting.
No, we know how many are left.
Sorry, you're counting, but you're only counting one side.
Piers, you seem to be a little obsessed with this.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with how many civilians are being killed.
Hey, great. And thank you for that, Piers. It's but again, we can never forget. Hey, for a long time you were like, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? But see, here's the bigger problem. Here's the bigger problem. When you have, again, our own government too, refusing any kind of accountability. I want to pull up this article here. 42 House Democrats. What? Help GOP pass bill targeting ICC officials over Israel. You don't say. Human rights defenders on Tuesday decried the U.S. House Representatives' passage of a bill that would sanction the International Criminal Court officials over the Hague Tribunal's pursuit of arrest warrants for Israel leaders. Legislation critics warned would undermine the court's independence and would be weaponized to silence Americans' free speech. See, we're losing our free speech. House lawmakers voted 247, 155 in favor of House Resolution 8282, the Illegitimate Court Counteraction Act. 42 pro-Israeli Democrats. What? 42 pro-Israeli Democrats. I say again, 42 pro-Israeli Democrats joined all but 2 Republicans who voted present in approving the bill, which was sponsored by far-right Representative Chip Roy. The idea that they would issue an arrest warrant for the Prime Minister of Israel, Defense Minister of Israel, and at the time they were fighting for their nation's very existence against the evil of Hamas as a proxy of Iran is unconscionable to us, said House Speaker Mike Johnson. And as I said a couple of weeks ago, the ICC has to be punished for this action. I do want to pull up this video here where this was commented on in our own House floor.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition of H.
Now, again, this is a Democratic politician, so, I'm not really expecting much from any lawmaker in Washington, D.C. All what you say is words and words and words.
R8282. I've realized a pattern here. When my Republican colleagues can't legislate, they decide that they're going to score cheap points in 3 primary tools: fear-mongering, punishing, and silencing. So I want to break down a little bit of this bill today. Fear-mongering. The bill invokes the protection of United States military personnel. Now, let me clarify. The U.S. military personnel is not subject to the ICC because the United States is not a party to the Rome Statute, which I find shameful. Punishing, because the bill would impose sanctions against anyone who aids the ICC in investigating, in detaining, in arresting, or prosecuting anyone who has not consented to the court's jurisdiction. Let me clarify. Let me do that point of clarification here. The bill would weaponize sanctions against major U.S. allies who support the court. Allies like Germany, France, the UK, Japan, and countless others. Silencing how? If enacted, no funding may be used for the International Criminal Court. Another point of clarification, those efforts would weaken the ICC, and that makes us all less safe. It's important we remember why the ICC exists as defined by the Rome Statute. Mindful that during the century, millions of children, women, and men have been victims of unimaginable atrocity that deeply shocked the conscience of humanity. It recognizes that such grave crimes threaten the peace, the security, and the well-being of the world, and determined to put an end to impunity for the perpetrators of these crimes, and thus contribute to the prevention of such crimes. I stand in opposition of this resolution because we need the ICC. In the last 241 days, thousands have been victims of unimaginable atrocities. And Netanyahu's violations of international law have threatened the peace of the world. I'm determined to put an end to impunity for the perpetrators of these crimes, and I urge a no vote. With that, I yield back.
Isn't that fantastic? But look, maybe that's just one person there. I'm not expecting much from our lawmakers. Hell, I'm not expecting much from politicians. But I do want to pull up this heartfelt speech in the French Assembly. Let's go and pull this up here.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, alors que la Cour internationale de justice a ordonné à Israël de cesser son offensive sur Rafah, une 50aine de personnes sont mortes calcinées dans un camp de réfugiés bombardé. Un enfant a été décapité. L'hôpital de Rafah a cessé de fonctionner et les chars viennent d'entrer dans la ville. Cela va faire 8 mois que le monde regarde 2 millions de personnes vivre en enfer. En enfer car elles sont enfermées, sans eau, sans nourriture, sans médicaments, bombardées. Les victimes de cet abattoir à ciel ouvert se filment en temps réel. Hunger Games n'est plus seulement un divertissement, c'est la réalité dans le téléphone de nos adolescents. Bientôt 8 mois et vous n'avez pris aucune sanction contre les assassins. Pire, le soir de l'offensive sur Rafah, au dîner du CRIF, Monsieur le Premier ministre, en refusant de sermonner Israël, vous lui avez donné votre bénédiction. Vous avez préféré le cessez-le-feu au cessez-le-feu, le dîner aux chandelles, avec le soutien des génocidaires. La porte-parole du gouvernement se prenait en selfie avec un des influenceurs de l'armée israélienne, perdant son dernier Instagram de dignité, alors que la Norvège, l'Espagne, l'Irlande reconnaissent aujourd'hui l'État palestinien. Vous osez placer la France dans le camp des complices. J'ai mal à ma France, me disent beaucoup de nos concitoyens. Moi aussi, j'ai mal à ma France, patrie des droits de l'homme, devenue patrie du droit du plus fort. J'ai mal à la France des Lumières qui permet qu'on transforme des gens en torches humaines au nom de la lutte contre l'obscurantisme. J'ai mal à ma France de la Révolution qui défigure la démocratie même en justifiant qu'on affame 2 millions de personnes en son nom. Le Conseil de sécurité des Nations Unies se réunit aujourd'hui. La France doit annoncer la suspension des échanges économiques avec Israël et demander l'intervention immédiate des casques bleus. Rafah n'est pas qu'une frontière, c'est un miroir. Si vous ne le faites pas, ma question, Monsieur le Premier ministre, c'est comment vous pourrez vous regarder dans une glace?
Merci, Madame Dufour.
Hey, wish we had that passion in Washington, D.C., maybe a little bit more. But just as a final note, Netanyahu has been undermining the Biden broken ceasefire proposal to protect his own political career. So in other words, Piers, glad you were grilling that former mayor, the deputy mayor, because obviously the death toll is going to still keep on rising.
The Israeli prime minister has spent the last couple of days really walking away from some of the key parts of this deal, indicating that this will not lead to an end of the war, which was very much the way that President Biden tried to frame the deal on Friday. And the Israeli prime minister is doing that for one key reason, and that's because two far-right members of his governing coalition have threatened to topple the government altogether if the Israeli prime minister moves forward with this deal. But at the same time, there are now new concerns, Wolf, inside the Israeli government, according to two sources who I spoke with, concerns that the Israeli prime minister is in fact undermining the very fabric of this deal and the way in which it's being sold to Hamas by the mediators, by focusing so much on the fact that he will not allow this to lead to an end of the war until all the conditions of this war are met. Meaning the destruction of Hamas. There is a key part of this deal that is very much intended to be ambiguous about how exactly you go from a 6-week ceasefire, one that can be extended for weeks or months even, and ultimately leading to a longer term, perhaps even a permanent ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
You know what that means? More people are going to die. Told you, Netanyahu, I made this very abundantly clear to all of you in my audience. Netanyahu is going to do everything he can to maintain his power. He's not going to lose his coalition. He's in too deep. He can't leave. And it's either this or face his own destruction. And unfortunately, the people who will be paying for it the most will be the people in Gaza as the death toll rises up. Where are our leaders? Oh, that's right. They're nowhere to be seen.